This story contains intense violence, heavy gore, torture, and disturbing content. If you are under the age of 18, if you have a sensitive mindset, and if you don't like blood, please do not watch this video. Bellwood, a city full of blood, a city full of brutal murders. The police find new bodies every day. Severed heads, hands, and feet decorating the streets with blood, and faces with torn skin, and a number was written on the walls of the crime scenes. The number 10. There was a young girl named Julie who lived in a small house in Bellwood with her parents. She heard the sound of the TV. Her father was watching the news as usual. The police found new bodies again, and the usual number was written on the wall of the crime scene. Today's bodies belong to a young and middle-aged man. The blood is fresh and it is obvious that it has happened recently. But the killer could escape again. Should we wait for the killer to be captured or new murders? She was tired of seeing the bloody scenes that were blurred. This killer made Bellwood a gloomy and a soulless city that nobody even wanted to step in it. For a while, leaving the city was also forbidden to avoid the killer's escape, because they had no name or address from that man or woman. When she looked out of the window, she saw the deserted street in the night sky. It felt like a post-apocalyptic zombie movie. Even going outside after dark was forbidden, and everyone had to lock their doors and windows. One person alone had instilled so much fear in the hearts of the people. She got tired, so she went to her room for some sleep. She found her bed in the darkness and threw herself onto it. She opened her eyes to the sound of a knock on the window. She turned her gaze toward it and saw a bloodied, wounded hand pressed against the glass. Suddenly a man appeared from below. Julie was scared a lot. She grabbed her phone and turned on the flashlight and aimed it toward the window, but wished she hadn't done that.
Help me!
Oh God, he couldn't even talk. Suddenly another person with a black mask appeared and wrapped his arm around the victim's neck. His hands were covered with white gloves, and on the left one was written something with blood. No, Julie couldn't believe that. Number 10? The man was the killer. The man was Death 10. The man that was being choked struggled a lot and accidentally put down the killer's mask. Julie was shaking with fear, but she did a smart thing. She opened her camera immediately and took a picture of the killer's face. Julie had the mysterious killer's face that wasn't mysterious for her anymore. The killer grabbed the victim's head and broke his neck with just one move. Then he covered his face and looked at Julie angrily. 1 punch, 2 punches, 3 punches. Julie was scared more, and the killer got more angry. But something wasn't true. He couldn't break the window. The window wasn't broken. But why? Julie almost had forgotten. The mayor, for protecting people, had ordered that windows must be unbreakable. The killer got tired and stopped punching. Julie tapped on her phone with her finger, and after some seconds put it on her ear. 911, what's your emergency? The killer is here! Destin is here! She shouted immediately. She called the police. The killer was afraid and started running. He's running away! Calm down, we're sending a few people to your location. The killer completely disappeared. Her parents came into the room and turned on the light. What happened? The killer, he was right there, at the window. Julie said with fear. Calm down, you probably had a bad dream. Her mother said. I have his picture, Julie answered. She looked for the picture with her trembling hand, and after some seconds she found it and showed it to her mother. Look, we have to show it to the police. But unfortunately the picture was awful. It wasn't obvious at all. No, my hands trembled for sure. The sound of the doorbell echoed throughout the entire house. Julie went and opened the door fast. An officer was standing in front of her. "Hello, ma'am. We received a call from here and we were said that the killer was here." Yes, I called. I saw the killer's face." "Hey, come here!" Suddenly another officer called the officer that was talking to Julie. The officer went toward him, and Julie and her parents went with him too. "Just look. His face is completely destroyed and his neck. Oh God." Everyone was scared and surprised. Julie's mother closed her eyes in order not to see the corpse. "Send a few people to investigate. The new body has been found," one of the officers said to his handheld radio. "You should leave here. The killer may come back again." Meanwhile, the killer, full of hatred and even fear, was watching them behind a wall. But his focus was mostly on Julie, because she was the only person that could see his face without being dead. He had to find a way to kill that girl. In his mind, he was just thinking about killing her. He disregarded them. He punched on the wall angrily and he broke his fingers. He just started running with all pain that he had. He saw a dark alley on his right and went into it. Some people were talking to each other and their faces were full of scars. When they saw the killer, they started laughing loudly and took out their knives from their pockets. "Hey, aren't you afraid you're here?" For a 20-and-something-year-old killer wasn't so good to talk like that. He just took out a knife with his uninjured hand and launched at them fast. The second person got ready, but Death 10 was already ready and had no fear. But something weird just happened. Suddenly bright light spread and they both looked up to the sky. Something like a meteor fell between them and a big crater was made on the ground. And a spherical object landed on the ground. The man that wanted to kill Death 10 was thrown and rendered unconscious. And others were afraid and went some steps back. But Death 10 was brave. He wanted to know what that thing is. The spherical object opened and a black watch appeared. But suddenly the watch jumped and wrapped itself around his wrist. He was afraid a lot. He shook his hand fast in order to separate it, but it was stuck. He slammed the watch under the wall and boom! Black and white light spread from the watch. He started to burn, but he didn't feel any pain. Nothing. That was unbelievable. He transformed into a fiery creature. The firelight from his body lit up the entire dark alley. He was scared a lot. He didn't know what to do. He thought that he was burning. All of them watched him in fear. The killer suddenly went silent. When he realized he was on fire but felt no pain, his restlessness faded. He looked at them. Damn. The thought of killing still hadn't left his mind. Staring at them with burning eyes, he shouted, that word. It was the name he had chosen for the alien he had turned into. Without hesitation, he approached one of them and thrust his hand deep into their chest. The corpse, chest split open, collapsed to the ground. The killer dropped the heart beside it. The symbol of the watch he had acquired now glowed on his chest. Curious, he pressed it like a button. Suddenly, a blinding black and white light burst out. He looked at his hands. He was human again. He didn't know what this watch or weapon was, but he knew one thing. With it, he was going to become the most dangerous serial killer the world had ever seen. And now, his fingers, The same ones he had broken one by one with a single punch were fully healed. Then it hit him. The stench. It crawled up his nose and stabbed his brain. Even through his black mask, he could smell it. He looked at the wet ground. Damn, it smelled like urine. Someone revealed themselves there, or maybe those people were so afraid that they wet themselves and ran away. The thought made him laugh, loudly, a twisted laugh that echoed through the dark alley. Morning came. Julie was sitting on her bed, her mind completely overwhelmed by fear of the killer. Her parents were outside, packing up some essential stuff, getting ready to leave for her dad's brother's house. Suddenly, the door opened and Julie jumped up, but it wasn't anything to worry about. It was just her mother holding her phone. "Your phone's ringing," her mother said. Julie got out of her bed and walked toward her mom with a troubled face. Trying to reassure her, her mom said, "Don't worry, you don't need to be this scared. We'll be out of here by tonight." Julie gave a faint smile, took the phone and answered as her mom left the room. "Hello?" Her best friend Gwen was on the other end. "Julie, are you okay? I heard the killer attacked you." "It was terrifying," Julie answered. "Do you have time to talk now?" Gwen asked. "Not really. I'm not sure when I'll be free," Julie answered. Suddenly, a loud crashing sound came from Gwen's side. "Oh, sorry. I gotta go. I'll call you later," Gwen said and hung up. They were supposed to leave for her uncle's house before nightfall. This house no longer brought them any comfort. Only fear and intense anxiety filled its walls. The killer knew Julie now. He even knew where she lived. At any moment, he could find a way in and end her life. A 20-something-year-old man had brought such horror to Bellwood that people were too afraid to even sleep, let alone step outside or glance through a window. It was that terrifying. Night fell. They were all still at home. Nobody dared go out. Even the damn taxi hadn't arrived yet. It was supposed to get there before dark. "Ridiculous! Don't they want to save Bellwood from this damn killer? I'm calling them right now!" Julie's father muttered angrily to himself. He held his phone to his ear and waited. "Hello?" One of Bellwood's few perks. How fast they answered. "Excuse me, you were supposed to be here before dark. Why hasn't anyone shown up yet?" "Don't worry, the car will be there in a few minutes." And a few minutes later, a large black vehicle pulled up. They locked the doors behind them and quickly grabbed their backpacks, rushing into the car. As soon as they were inside, the car took off. On the way, Julie's father struck up a conversation with the driver. "Have you ever wondered why the killer calls himself Death 10? I'm really curious what that number means." The driver answered in a cold, serious tone. "No one knows. Some say he kills 10 people every day. Others say he's had 10 glorious deaths, or something like that. There are a lot of stories, but nobody really knows anything about him." Julie's father, his curiosity growing, asked, "So how did this damn guy first show up?" Still driving and keeping an eye on the road, the driver replied, "At first, there were small killings, ones that didn't get much attention. As you know, no one took it seriously at the time. Not until the murders increased so much that no one could stop them, not even the police." Suddenly, a strange sound was heard. From the roof of the car, was someone walking on the roof? Walking! Julie froze in fear. The driver slammed on the brakes and got out. Just then, a terrifying, guttural voice screamed,
A strange and terrifying creature, with a gruesome blade jutting out from its arms, pierced through the man's eye and face completely, sending a horrifying spray of blood into the air. Everyone inside the vehicle screamed in panic, their faces twisted in sheer terror. The stench of fear filled the atmosphere. All eyes locked onto the monster's figure. Dear God, what was that thing? It looked like a tiger, but not entirely. It wasn't just a bizarre creature, it was an alien that the deranged killer had transformed into. And Wrath, the name he had screamed, was the name he had chosen for his alien form. The creature's appearance was nightmarish, massive, unnaturally strong. Its entire body was covered in tiger-like fur, and its face was horrifying. Half of it had been completely destroyed, revealing the exposed skull underneath. The blaring sound of police sirens pierced the silence. Patrol officers, making their nightly rounds, spotted the killer, now a savage, monstrous being. They opened fire immediately, but the killer charged straight at them, every bullet missing its mark. Then, with a powerful leap, it grabbed one of the officers and crushed his gun effortlessly with one hand. The remaining two officers raised their weapons and fired, but the killer held up the mangled officer like a human shield. Bullets tore through him, spraying blood in every direction and turning the street into a storm of red droplets. Julie and the others, still inside the car, were paralyzed with fear, screaming uncontrollably. The killer, still in his beastly form, leaped again, snatching a gun from another officer. Without hesitation, he fired a round directly into the head of the cop still gripping his weapon. Then, with a wide grin, he opened his mouth. He sank them deep into the neck of the third officer, tearing out a massive, blood-soaked chunk of flesh. Blood gushed like a fountain as the man collapsed. Then the killer shifted, reverting to his human form. The time had come for his main target, Julie. He twisted the dial on his device, selected a form, and slammed his fist down. In a burst of light, it transformed into Heat Blast. With a roar, he unleashed a wave of deadly, searing flames at the car Julie and her family were hiding in. Within seconds, the entire vehicle melted, warped into a puddle of molten metal. The flames died out, and the killer approached the car, now nothing more than a liquefied shell. But something was wrong. He expected to see their charred remains inside, but there was nothing. No bodies, no signs of life. It was as if they had vanished. He looked around, scanning his surroundings, and then, on his left, he spotted them. Julie and her family were running. They had escaped, but the killer knew there was no way out. But suddenly, "Get in!" A red-haired girl with blue-tinted glasses had sat in a car. Julie's eyes lit up. It was Gwen, her friend. Without hesitation, everyone jumped into the vehicle, and Gwen hit the gas, speeding away from that murderous psycho. The killer didn't follow. Julie glanced back and froze. He had returned to his human form, and when their eyes met, terror gripped her heart. He raised his watch in a silent threat and laughed loudly. Julie and her family got in the car, and the killer raised his hand and showed his watch as a threat. Julie and her family was scared a lot. "Don't be surprised. That creature is the killer." Gwen said this, but how did she know? "The killer? You mean Death 10? Julie's father asked in shock.
You mean he's a monster? Julie's mother said with a frightened look. Gwen quickly turned the wheel and entered the main street. Not exactly a monster, she replied. It's like he found some device that lets him transform into those things. How do you know all this? Julie asked. You're not the only one he's after, she answered. Suddenly, a police officer stepped into the road and raised a hand toward them. Gwen pulled the car over without hesitation. The officer approached the window, and Gwen slowly rolled it down, her expression tense. What are you doing out here this late? The officer asked. I'm sorry, but Gwen began. We've just arrived. This is the place. Thank you. Julie's father interrupted from the back seat. You're welcome, Gwen said with a tight nod, and her brows furrowed. Ma'am, he called sharply. I asked what you're doing here. Don't you know civilians aren't allowed outside after dark? I apologize. Here you go, the officer said. He wrote a fine, handed it over, and without another word turned away. Gwen's expression darkened as she glanced at the ticket in her hand. Morning came. Sunlight rose from behind the buildings and lit up the entire city. Everyone was awake, sitting at the table waiting for Julie's aunt to bring breakfast. The doorbell rang. Julie's father stood up and walked to the door. Yes? When he opened it, two people were standing there, one in a navy shirt and the other in a police uniform. The officer cut straight to the point. Last night you were leaving your house, right? Yeah. All our stuff was left in that car on the street. You're under arrest. You need to come with. The man in the navy shirt cut him off. I apologize, he said. You're not under arrest and you don't have to come with us. He extended his hand. I'm Detective Smith, he continued. We're just here to ask a few questions. Of course, please come in. We won't come in, please. The detective grabbed his arm. Take it easy, the detective said. The officer ignored him and stepped away. You made a call and reported that you saw the killer, right? Not me. My daughter called. Can we speak with her? Sure, just a moment. He walked over to Julie. Julie, the police want to talk to you. Without a word, she slowly approached the door. How can I help you? She said, with a quiet and a scared voice. The detective pulled out a notebook and a pencil and began his questions. You reported seeing the killer's face. Can you describe him to help us? Or perhaps come with us to... No, I'm more comfortable doing it here. She thought for a few seconds and continued. His eyes were black and he had long black hair. His face looked human mostly. I don't remember it clearly, but his clothes were weird. A black, old torn coat like it hadn't been washed in a year. On both hands, he wore white gloves with blood stains. On his left glove, the number 10 was written in blood. If you see his face again, will you recognize him? 100%. But I don't know if you believe me. The killer can transform into alien monsters and change his appearance. The detective put his notebook away, smirking dismissively. We only needed a physical description for now. We might come back later with more questions. Thanks. You're welcome. Julie closed the door. The detective and the officer walked back to their car, parked meters away among the trees. I don't know why, the detective said with disgust, but I really hate that girl and her nonsense. The killer can turn into alien monsters? Superstitious little silly. The officer got into the driver's seat and turned the key. The car didn't start. What the? He muttered to himself. Let me check. He got out and walked to the hood. Pop it! He shouted. The detective popped the hood from inside the car. Damn it! What the hell is this? He was horrified by what he saw. The detective got out and immediately threw up. It was horrifying. A completely mangled corpse was stuck inside the engine. It was a man, but his body was so destroyed that his face was unrecognizable. His limbs were crushed, his eyes bulging out of his crushed skull, and his tongue was shredded in the engine's belts. Blood was still spurting out. "Close it! Close it!" the detective cried. "You've seen plenty of crime scenes. How is this one making you puke?" The officer said. He let the hood slam shut. Suddenly, they heard a noise, a rustling from behind the bushes near the trees. Along with it, the sound of an animal. Both of them focused their ears. "What's that sound?" the detective asked. "Sounds like a monkey." Suddenly, a strange monkey-like creature leapt from the bushes and pounced on the detective. But this was no ordinary monkey. It had the horrifying appearance of a cross between a monkey and a spider. More than 5 black spider-like eyes covered its face. It had 4 long arms, each with only 3 thin fingers. Its tail was long, and on its chest was the killer's alien watch symbol. Yes, it was the killer, in a new alien form. In a screeching monkey voice, he shouted,
Spider Monkey!
Then it shot webs from its tail at the officer, wrapping his arms tightly. The detective screamed for help, but no one was around to hear them. The creature, the killer, opened his mouth and bit the detective's face. He screamed from deep in his throat. His entire face was torn off, and his skull was exposed to the killer's view. With the spider-like laughter, he made terrifying, monkey-like sound and kept laughing. He placed his teeth on the skull, and the victim, with his face torn apart, groaned. The killer tried to crush the skull with his teeth, but it was too tough, and his teeth slipped over the blood. The police officer watched in fear, struggling to free himself. The killer retreated into the bushes, hiding again. The detective, still groaning with his horrific, disfigured face, continued to whimper, while the police officer gasped for breath, terrified. Suddenly, the killer returned, holding a thick, heavy branch. He ran at high speed and slammed it into the detective's skull. A few cracks appeared, and the killer bounced up and down laughing. He struck again, but this time, he didn't stop. He kept hitting. 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, 4 hits, and boom! The 4th hit completely crushed the detective's head and brain, turning the ground red with blood. As the sound from the watch on his chest rang out, a flash of white and black light burst from him, and he returned to his human form. Although his black mask still covered his face, the rise of his cheeks made it clear he was laughing. He approached the police officer trapped in the web and pulled the knife from the back pocket of his pants. "So it's true. You can transform." The killer raised his hand and covered the officer's mouth, cutting him off. He wagged his index finger and pressed his hand harder on the officer's face, as if trying to rip his mouth off. He pressed harder, harder and harder. The pain increased for the officer until suddenly the killer let out a scream of pain. He stumbled backward. Blood began to pour from a wound in his thigh. "Idiot! You thought I was unarmed?" The officer was holding a bloody knife.
which he had used to free one of his hands. It tore through the rest of the sticky web and broke free completely. He ran toward the killer and punched him hard in the face. He raised his hand to strike his watch and transform again, but the officer quickly drew his gun and shot him in the shoulder. The killer grabbed the bullet wound, and blood spilled from between his fingers. He fell onto the ground. The officer stepped over him and aimed the gun at his head. Finally, Bellwood can breathe. A sigh of relief. He said this with a face full of hatred. The killer was panting in pain, bleeding more with every breath. The officer watched him with pure loathing. He placed his finger on the trigger and said, "But before that, let's see your ridiculous face." With his gun ready, he reached for the killer's mask and began to pull it down. But suddenly, the killer twitched. The officer flinched and stepped back in fear. Aiming his gun again, the killer went still once more. His eyes looked rosy. The officer reached again for the mask and pulled it down, just a little. He smiled and said, "I didn't expect you to be so young. I bet if I saw your whole face..." Suddenly, in the middle of his sentence, the killer slammed his hand onto the watch. A blinding light exploded. The officer immediately fired several shots and backed off. But when the light faded, he was gone. Only the mark he left on the ground remained. The officer stood frozen in fear. Then it happened. He heard heavy breathing behind him. He could feel the killer's hot breath brushing against his ear. A deep, raspy voice whispered,
He turned his head
slightly and froze in terror. Behind him stood a thin, bony face with only 2 nostril holes, crooked yellow teeth, and pitch-black eyes. The face was so skinny, it looked like a zombie. His entire body was emaciated, with ribs nearly breaking through his skin. His legs too, instead of normal feet, there were 2 black spinning wheels. Instead of fingers, his hands ended in 3 long, sharp black claws that glistened. The killer placed his clawed hands on the officer's face, bent slightly forward, and made zombie-like groans. He redied his legs and suddenly took off running, unbelievably fast. So fast he covered several miles in seconds, tearing branches off trees as he zoomed past. The officer, dragged by his legs, screamed and struggled. The killer crossed all of Bellwood in an unbelievably short time, then slammed the officer into a wall and stopped. The officer's legs were destroyed. The killer brought his claws together and drove them into the officer's side. A scream of pain rang out. He withdrew his claws and stabbed them into the officer's eye. More screams. He laid the officer on the ground and rolled back slightly on his rear legs. He brought both hands' claws together again and started stabbing them repeatedly into the officer's body. His hands moved so fast, it was as if he had 1,000 of them. Blood sprayed everywhere. It filled the air. It drenched the killer. After several minutes, he stopped. Oh, damn. The appearance of the victim was awful. The killer still in his transformed high-speed form, was running relentlessly. His speed made him almost invisible to the naked eye. He had nearly exited the city and reached the wide road surrounded by forest. He changed direction and entered the woods. But suddenly, without any clear reason, a flash of black and white light burst from his body, and he turned back into his human form. The watch didn't even make a sound. As he reverted to his human state, he lost balance and collapsed onto the dirt-covered ground, which was blanketed with fallen leaves. His face was turned toward the sky, though the tall trees above blocked the sunlight, casting large shadows over him. Just then, a voice suddenly shouted,
Give back the Omnitrix!
Whose voice was that? It sounded like an old man's. The killer turned his head and saw two strange small creatures. Both had grayish skin and were small enough to fit comfortably in the palm of a hand. One of them looked older than the other, and both had black and white eyes. The older one yelled,
I am Azimuth, creator of the Omnitrix. I came all the way from Galvan Prime to Earth to take it back. This device should never be in the hands of an evil killer like you. If I had known it would be used for such evil, I would have never created it.
The killer glanced at his watch.
Yes, that device that you're looking at. Hand it over.
With a bored expression, he casually picked up the small gray creature in his hand.
What are you doing? Let go of me.
He looked over at the younger creature and shouted,
Albedo, help me! Stop just staring and do something!
Without hesitation, the killer grabbed the creature's head and effortlessly tore it from its body, causing a violent spray of blood to burst out. Just like that. If you've made it this far, then Death 10 got inside your head. Hit that subscribe button and don't miss what's next. He tossed the lifeless body aside and turned his gaze toward the other creature. The remaining one spoke. Before you do anything, I should tell you, I think you can keep that device. Deathton decided to listen to him. You know, I don't have any problem that you kill. You can keep the Omnitrix. And thanks for getting rid of that creature. The killer was genuinely surprised. In fact, I think we should rename that device. Let's see. How about Deathtrix? Since you're a killer, the name fits perfectly. But I need to explain how this device, or weapon, or watch, or whatever you want to call it, ended up here. When that arrogant creature Azimuth was building the Omnitrix, I mean the Deathtrix, I had no idea what he planned to do with it. So I secretly took it without him knowing and sent it directly to you. Deathton looked a little surprised. Don't be surprised. I've been watching you all along. I saw how skillfully and terrifyingly you killed people. I was genuinely impressed by how you drowned an entire city in blood, and yet no one could find you. So I started to like you. My thoughts have always been different from Azimuth's. He wanted to help people, but me? I was something else. I am something else. Now, here's the interesting part. I said Azimuth believed in helping others, but maybe you're wondering why those aliens you turned into look so terrifying. Well, I had to find someone who was truly dark on the inside. So, I made a little modification to the watch, just enough to make sure the user had no mercy in their heart. The truth is, the watch reveals the user's true soul, and your soul is pure darkness. In my opinion, no human deserves to own that device, but at least now, I get to watch humanity fall.
That creature was always smarter than me. There was nothing I could do. But you freed me. Take a good look, Mr. Death 10. You're looking at a different Galvin. You're looking at an evil Galvin. I am Albedo, and I will hold the universe in my hands.
The two stared at each other, locking eyes. Suddenly, a bright light surrounded the small gray creature. If you ever need anything, just call me through that device, Mr. Death 10. He laughed and vanished completely. Death 10 stood up without care, brushing leaves and twigs off his worn-out coat. His eyes were burning with fury. Julie's image flashed in his mind, and his anger grew even stronger. He remembered that girl again, the one who, for the first time, had seen the face of the psycho killer, yet he still hadn't managed to kill her. She had slipped through his hands like a goldfish, slick, fast, and gone. Azimuth had just finished building his greatest invention, the Omnitrix. Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? Albedo said excitedly. It is, Azimuth replied with a small smile. So, what are you going to do with it? Use it for power? Conquer other planets? Albedo asked with a grin. No, Azimuth said, his tone suddenly cold. So, not planets? Are you going for universes then? That would be awesome! What are you saying? Azimuth snapped. I didn't build this device for that kind of purpose. Okay, I'm sorry, Albedo said quickly. So, what are you planning to do with it then? I need to find someone worthy, Azimuth replied. Someone who can use it responsibly. I knew someone, a hero, but he's gone now. And his family, they're not worthy at all. Albedo's eyes widened. You mean Max Tennyson? The guy who protected Earth from alien threats? Are you serious? Azimuth looked at him, confused. What's wrong with that? Don't tell me you're giving this to a human, Albedo yelled. If anyone can be worthy, it's them. But, Albedo, this device can be a tool for good, but it can also bring destruction if used by the wrong hands. You have to understand it. Yes, I was wrong. I'm sorry, I acted arrogantly. I'm really sorry. You're right. It's alright, dear, Azimuth said kindly. We must be careful. Arrogance can destroy everything. You're right, Albedo said. Now, I need some rest. Building this device took everything out of me. No problem at all. I'll take care of everything. And again, I'm sorry for what I said. I swear I'll never think of conquest again. Azimuth smiled and walked away. Idiot. Albedo whispered once Azimuth was gone. You want someone worthy? He turned to a large monitor. I know someone. The grandson of Max Tennyson. Someone very different from his grandfather. Worthy, at least in my eyes. He opened the device, tweaked its settings, placed it inside a metal sphere. It's my creation now. And sent it to Earth. I knew it. Azimuth always saw Tennyson as a hero. That's why I knew he would eventually build this device for him. I only gave it a 1% chance that this was for humans. And I was right. That's why I've been watching this young Tennyson. I hate humans. Fine. You want it for a human? I just sent it to one. Suddenly, Azimuth stormed in. What did you do? He shouted, full of fear. I did exactly what you wanted, Albedo replied innocently. Because you said you wanted to send it for Max Tennyson, I just sent it to Max Tennyson's grandson. I thought he might be worthy. Did I do something wrong? What a good actor. Azimuth froze. His voice dropped. No, you don't understand. He's not normal. Max warned me, but I forgot to tell you. Yes, you forgot to tell him, but he already knew that. Stop it! Stop everything! There's nothing I can do.
I already sent it. It might be on Earth now. It is so fast. Azimuth's eyes widened in horror. No, nothing about him is normal. He's a psychopath. He's a killer.
Julie sat slumped, drained, and desolate as always. Her mother and aunt were out shopping, and yet the killer's presence still surrounded her mind. Whether sleeping, eating, or doing the smallest, most mundane tasks, his image never left her, like a tick never letting go. And now, knowing he could transform into alien monsters, her fear only intensified. If this kept up, she'd lose her sanity. With nothing else to do, she grabbed her phone and called her friend Ben Tennyson, inviting her over. Gwen agreed, and Julie then called her aunt to ask permission. Minutes passed. The house was eerily silent, so quiet even a mosquito wouldn't dare buzz. The doorbell startled Julie. Trembling, her fear of the killer still alive, she crept toward the door and whispered, "Who is it?" "It's me, Gwen Tennyson," came the reply. Julie opened the door and saw Gwen bundled into a thick jacket. Julie greeted cheerily. They settled on the two-seater couch. "How have you been?" Julie asked. "Great. How about you?" Gwen replied. "Well," Julie said, "not great. Because of the killer, right?" Gwen guessed. "Yeah, I can't stop thinking about him. I'm always afraid I'll open the door and see him standing there, shifting right in front of my eyes." "Don't worry. Someday it will end. Maybe even today or tomorrow," Gwen reassured her. "I hope so," Julie said. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. You said the killer's after you, remember?" "Yeah, I remember." "How did that happen?" Gwen thought a moment. "Well, I've known the killer since the day I opened my eyes in this world." Julie's jaw dropped. "What?" Gwen laughed softly. "I'm kidding. Actually, I saw his face one night by accident, just like you did. Then he came after me. He must be really sensitive about someone seeing his face." Julie became thoughtful, but Gwen interrupted, voice suddenly serious. "But listen to me." Her eyes glowed strangely, as if she was about to reveal a secret. "You should know, the killer you're running from isn't a normal human anymore. You have to be extremely careful. He could be anywhere you are, eating, talking, even thinking. He might be standing there, staring right at you. The places you'd least expect. That psycho could be right there." Julie was scared a lot. "I'm kidding. Why are you so serious?" Gwen's phone rang. She grabbed it quickly. "Hello? I'm on my way," she said. Then she faced Julie. "Sorry, I've gotta go. We'll meet up another day and talk more, okay?" "Alright." She got up in a hurry and left. After a minute, Julie glanced at the table. Gwen's keys lay there. She left her keys. Suddenly her phone rang. It was Gwen calling back. "Hello?" "Oh, Julie, I'm so sorry. I left my keys at your place." "They're right here, yes." "Thanks so much. I really need them. I'll come pick them up right now." "It's okay." Gwen sounded frantic. 2 minutes passed. Julie said to herself, "Gwen's here." She grabbed the keys and rushed to the door. Coming, she said aloud. "Hi, Gwen." Suddenly she froze. No, it couldn't be. Destin was standing calmly right in front of her. He laughed and bolted inside. Julie let out a terrified scream. At last, her nightmare had come alive. She was face to face again with that damn deranged killer. He had already primed his watch. He pressed it, and boom! wanted to shout the alien's name, but he couldn't breathe with his nose easily because it was covered with his skin of his face, so he did a terrible thing. Julie's aunt, mother, father, and uncle all arrived at the scene in their car, and what they saw left them completely horrified. "Julie, run!" her mother screamed with desperation, but the killer let out a monstrous growl and charged toward them. He drove his fingers deep into both her mother's and aunt's faces at the same time. "What did you do?" her uncle shouted. "You freaking idiot!" her father yelled, but the killer didn't flinch. He turned to them with cold blood, ripped off her uncle's head in one savage motion, sending a violent spray of blood across the air. Then it was her father's turn, but the man stood firm, unshaken. "Julie, run," he said. "I will distract him." Julie shouted through her tears, filled with fury. "You wanted me, didn't you? Then why the hell did you kill them?" The killer didn't care. He moved toward her father and twisted his hands into a long root-like shape, wrapping it tightly around the man's neck. Even with the choking grip, her father managed to speak with every last ounce of strength. "Julie, go while he's distracted. Run!" Blood began to sip from his throat as the pressure grew stronger. Tears streamed from Julie's eyes. "Know that. I always love you." The killer squeezed harder. Julie screamed, turned, and ran. "I hate you, psycho! I hate you!" She ran and ran until she couldn't anymore. Her lungs burned, and she could feel how far she'd gotten. Somewhere deep in the woods, she collapsed against a tree, trying to catch her breath. She began sobbing uncontrollably. Pulling out her phone with shaking hands, she called, "911, what's your emergency?" "It's me, Julie Yamamoto. My family was just killed by the killer. Death 10. Please." Suddenly, a strange white and black light flashed behind her, and before she could react, a hand snatched the phone away and crushed it instantly. Julie slowly turned her head in horror. Oh no, the killer was standing right behind her in his human form, his eyes wide and emotionless. How did you find me?" He raised his arm and showed her the death tricks. Julie didn't need a reply. She had her answer. But in a flash, he injected something into her neck. Within seconds, she collapsed, unconscious. Julie slowly regained consciousness. The room was dim, barely lit by a weak bulb that buzzed with each blink. The walls were cracked, the floor was stained, and the air smelled of something between metal and rot. She felt something wet hit her face. Instinctively, she tried to raise her hand to wipe it off, but her arms were tight behind her, locked to the wooden chair. She heard something, a heavy, repetitive thud echoed from nearby, and then more drops, something warm landing on her cheek. Her mind snapped back. She remembered the killer. He'd knocked her out. She turned her head to the right, and when she saw the thing, she got terrified. A scream tore from her throat. The killer was standing at a wooden table covered in a plastic apron, sawing through a man's body. Limbs were already severed, blood dripping, splattering, pulling. The thumping was the sound of the cleaver slamming into flesh and bone. He grabbed one of the arms, dripping blood, and was about to toss it into a garbage bin, but then he noticed her watching. Julie's terrified, pale face was trembling. His eyes widened, and then he smiled. Still silent, the killer tossed his blood-stained apron aside, clapped his hands like a child thrilled with a gift, and slowly stepped toward her. He leaned in, just inches from her face, his eyes locked onto hers. He reached to a small metal table beside her and picked up a crumpled paper. He unfolded it and held it in front of her eyes. On it was written, in childish, shaky handwriting, "Hi, my name is Ben Tennyson. What's your name?" Then he flipped the paper. On the back, written in messy, smaller letters, "I love killing you. No, I love killing everyone." He pulled out another paper. "You're probably scared." "No, definitely scared. By the way, I'm 23 years old. How old are you?" Julie didn't answer. He stared at her blankly, then suddenly slammed his hand on the metal table, making a loud bang that jolted her like a shot. Finally, with a trembling voice, she muttered, 21? The killer's face lit up with disturbing joy. He got happy, so happy, but then a sound made him pause. There, tied to a chair, was a girl. Her hair was messy, her hands and mouth tightly bound. She was whimpering. Her soft, muffled cries echoed through the house. Ben didn't say a word. Instead, he wrote something on a paper and held it up to Julie. "Wanna see something cool?" Julie froze. Ben turned toward the girl, grabbed her hand slowly, almost gently, and smiled. But the girl whimpered harder, tears falling from her eyes. A sickening snap as Ben bent her arm back way too far. Bone pierced through the skin, blood shot out violently. But Ben wasn't finished. He bent it more and more. The bone tore further through muscle. The girl's cries grew unbearable. Julie screamed, "Stop it! Please stop!" Ben was overjoyed, laughing like a lunatic, until the arm snapped completely off. Blood gushed. He walked to the table, grabbed the box cutter, and without hesitation, he started tearing her skin. Blood gushed again. Then he separated the skin of half of her face. He laughed again. The girl's cries turned into screams. Julie shut her eyes, trembling. Ben dropped the skin. He walked back to the table like a butcher looking for his favorite knife, and there it was. A chainsaw, its blade still crusted with old blood. The sound of death filled the house. Julie started yelling, "No! Don't do it!" But Ben didn't care. He ran to the girl and placed the spinning chainsaw right on her skull. Blood sprayed, her screams, Julie's cries, Ben's manic laughter. They all merged into a symphony of horror. Only Burr's skull remained. The girl was still alive, barely. "Enough! Stop, please! Please stop!" Ben placed the chainsaw down. This time, he grabbed the hammer. A cold, heavy, blood-stained hammer. He smiled and struck. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, and boom! Her skull shattered into pieces. The girl was completely dead now. Ben dipped his hands into what was left of her head and slowly pulled out the brain, holding it like a prize. He laughed, louder than ever. Julie screamed, "How? How did you find me? Tell me! Tell me!" He coughed, but not like someone sick. This was a signal for something, or someone. Out of the shadows, someone stepped forward. Julie's heart dropped. She recognized the face. Yes, it was Gwen. Gwen Tennyson, one of her closest friends. "Hi, Julie."
Let me introduce myself. As you know, my name is Gwen Tennyson, and I'm the killer's cousin. Surprised, aren't you? Finally, Julie managed to speak. "So you're the one who sold out my uncle's house to that damn psycho?" The killer, like a childish clown, made a silly face pretending he had no idea what was going on, but it was obvious he was mocking her. "Remember the time you got into my car with your parents and the killer didn't chase you anymore? Yeah, what do you think I was doing? I was bringing you here. Oh, the damn officer. I wanted to keep my dear cousin happy, 'cause if he's not happy, I don't get paid. You know how it works. I saw how hard my cousin was working to get you, and I know when he wants something, he hates being interrupted. I just made things easier for him, and now he's gonna give me a fat stack of cash. Right, Ben?" Ben pulled out some money from his pocket and threw them in the air with joy. Gwen, acting like the maniac she truly was, leaped up and started collecting the money like a wild animal. She sniffed the bills like a starving beast and said, "You were on the list for so long. How do you think I managed to pretend to be your friend all these years? You're wondering why I didn't kill you first, right?" Ben burst out laughing and wiped away tears from laughing too hard. "Simple, so simple. There were a lot of people on the list, but you got picked suddenly, right in the middle, for one reason." The killer stepped toward Julie and took off his mask. "You saw his face, and just so you know, no one has ever seen his face and lived. He's really, really sensitive about that." Julie spat right in his face. The killer angrily lifted his watch, ready to activate it. But Gwen stopped him. "You idiot! Don't forget how many times you transformed into an alien while she was unconscious. You will break it." The killer pulled his mask back up and glared at her furiously, raising a finger at her like a warning. "So that's why, that night, when the killer returned in his human form, you didn't attack the car. He just watched you." "Exactly! And now you should know, we won the game." Suddenly, Julie's fear transformed into a smug grin, like she had just won the dirtiest game ever played. "I've already won. I didn't know the killer was arrogant enough to act without thinking, all because he's wearing that stupid watch around his wrist." The face behind the killer's mask was a mix of rage and disbelief. "I guess you didn't even check my pockets. The cops gave me a tracker, just in case. Looks like I'm the one who won this game." Suddenly, a voice shouted from outside, "Come out with the girl right now. We heard the whole conversation. We know you're in there. Come out now." Gwen turned toward the killer, eyes blazing with fury. "You idiot! You said everything was under control." The killer calmly pointed to his alien watch as if it was proof of safety, but Gwen snapped, "I don't give a damn about that stupid alien watch. What matters now is me. If they catch me, I'm going to prison. Do you get it?" The killer still didn't care. Gwen angrily pointed her trembling finger right at him. "Come on, give me my share. If you don't give it to me right now, I'll go to the cops and reveal your identity." He still ignored her and simply raised his hand, pointing to his watch. Then, like a child, he began making silly faces. But suddenly, Gwen snapped like a complete maniac. She flipped the table over, threw the small TV onto the floor, and its glass shattered everywhere. "Give me my money! Give it to me!" Once again, the voice of the police echoed through the entire house. "The whole building is surrounded. Come out and surrender!" She stormed toward the killer, grabbed the collar of his dirty coat, and shook him violently, screaming in his ears, "Give me my money! Talk to me! Get me out of here!" Suddenly, the killer lost it. He picked up a cleaver from the ground and slammed it right into her skull. Julie let out a loud scream. He kept hacking again and again. As blood sprayed everywhere until eventually her face split in two, completely open down the middle, and in between the blood stretched like gum as her body dropped to the floor. Outside, 9 police officers were still standing. One of them had a loudspeaker. It was fully daylight. After some minutes, the door slowly began to open. One of the officers said quietly, "You finally came out of your hole." Another shouted, "The killer and the red-haired girl, both of you are under arrest. Release the hostage immediately." Gwen's lifeless body suddenly rolled out from the darkness inside the house. Her face split down the middle, eyes wide open, and landed flat on the ground. Everyone flinched and stepped back. "Death 10, you're under arrest!" Suddenly, Death 10 stepped outside and slammed his hand against the watch on his wrist. He transformed.
He turned into a small black creature with razor-sharp teeth and white eyes. Lightning sparked from his body, and he let out a high-pitched laugh. He zipped toward them like a black bolt. They opened fire, but he was too fast. The bullets couldn't catch him. He went into a power pole, dancing through its wires with laughter, and then suddenly launched himself toward one of the officers, clinging tightly to his head. His head detached and floated in the air for a second before his lifeless body collapsed to the ground. One of the officers, with muscular arms and a steel baton, swung hard and struck Ben Tennyson in the middle of the head, slicing him in two. But now, there were 2 Buzzshocks, 2 Ben Tennysons, 2 Death 10s.
A couple of jiggers of moonlight and stars.
Put it back up now!
One mixing a couple of dreamers. They were lovers. Hey, the moonlight and a couple of flowers.
Put it back up now! Fast!
Moonlight cocktail, I need a few.
That hurts! That hurts! Eventually, someone could shut him. The killer went to kill them, but suddenly, a voice came from the device on the killer's chest. A dark glow surrounded both bodies of Buzzshock, and they merged again into one human form. He looked at his hands in shock.
Wait for recharge.
Then he remembered something. "You idiot! Don't forget how many times you transformed into an alien while she was unconscious. You will break it." They all tackled the killer, but he punched one of the officers hard in the face and drove a knife deep into another's head. Blood gushed out like a fountain. The rest of the officers were no match for him. He almost broke free. He reached into his coat and pulled out a gun, firing at the others, finally escaping. But then, more sirens. The killer started to run. He slammed his fist against his watch again and again, but nothing happened. He hit it harder, but it still wouldn't activate. Suddenly, a bullet struck his leg. Blood splattered everywhere. "Death 10, you're under arrest! Surrender now!" He let out the piercing scream, and the officers hesitated, stepping back. They all had their guns trained on him. "Drop your weapon! Drop your weapon now!" A shot rang out. The bullet hit Death 10's hand. His gun dropped to the ground, and he screamed in pain. Ben Tennyson began to limp away, staggering. My God, he, Ben Tennyson, the most dangerous killer, was crying? Large, uncontrollable tears streamed down his face as the officers stared at him in shock. He raised his gun again, but there was no way out now. The tears kept falling. He was out of bullets. "Cuff his wrist!" "Yes, sir!" One officer pulled a thick metal shackle from his pocket. The officers slowly approached. Destin kept crying more and more until he collapsed to the ground. This time, crawling, one of the officers rushed over, grabbed his hands, and handcuffed him. The killer cried like a child. They lifted him up and dragged him to the car like a pathetic, defeated loser. But this time, they knew. Knew what? They fastened a thick metal clamp around his wrist, locking the death tricks tightly, and threw him into the vehicle. Bellwood is finally free. 2 more officers entered the killer's house to rescue Julie. They nudged Gwen's corpse with their foot and stepped inside. The scene was horrifying. Julie's body was on the chair, headless. But Ben Tennyson cried harder, more and more. He was no longer a feared killer. He was a loser in every sense of the word. No matter how big the evil, in the end, it falls in the most humiliating way. Someone approached the lifeless corpse. The figure was a black and white alien, a member of the species known as Mechamorph, who spoke calmly. "Sir, we've located the body." Then, in an unexpected twist, someone appeared behind him. Good. It was him, Asmuth. But how? Ben Tennyson, Death 10, had killed him. And now, here he was, standing over his own lifeless corpse? How was that even possible? The Mechamorph turned, confused. "That was clever, sir. But there is something I don't understand." Asmuth, his eyes fixed on the body, replied, "What is it?" "This corpse. What does it belong to? I mean, who exactly did he kill?" "Oh, he didn't kill anyone. That body was never even alive." "I don't follow, sir." "It was nothing more than a remote controlled by a clone. I created it just in case. I always suspected he'd betray me one day. All that talk about using the Omnitrix to conquer worlds, it was only a matter of time. I just didn't think he'd send the Omnitrix to this planet so soon, to Max's grandson." "Well, he was trained by the most brilliant mind across 5 galaxies. It's my fault for trusting him. I was the fool. He always knew Max's grandson was unstable. He told me it was just an accident. Lies." "But sir, if you knew all this, why didn't you just take the Omnitrix back from the beginning?" "Because I was a fool. I thought he deserved another chance. I treated him like my own son. I let my emotions cloud my judgment. He looked down again at the copy of his former self. This clone was just a distraction. I wanted them to think I was dead, to buy time, so I could find a way to retrieve the Omnitrix. It's not a device you can just snatch back, and if they knew I was still alive, they'd hunt me down before I had the chance. A heavy silence followed. Sir, are you all right? Azimuth didn't answer at first. Then, he finally whispered, No, I'm not. Someone I raised beside me for years betrayed me. But his voice suddenly shifted from sadness to pure anger. This time I take back my invention. Is that him? Is that Death 10? Yes, he is. He is so young. Why is he covering his face? Well, he wanted it himself. Actually, he begged for it. Leave me alone! I want to go home! Leave me alone! Let me go! Yes, that's right. Kevin Ethan Levin. Make sure he doesn't touch anything. It's Kevin Levin, you idiot! Kevin Levin! Bring Ben Tennyson in his room. Who is Ben Tennyson? Death 10. Oh, yes, right.